doing? Hello, hope you're all right. Thank you for joining us on our second one of Becky's Life Hacks. So I'm joined again by my very good friend Kat. Kat, unmute yourself so you can say hello.
Hello everybody, nice to be here again.
Thank you, Kat. So just to recap on what this is all about, if you're joining us for the first time, it's using a little bit of my intuition to be able to give you kind of, in a sense, soundbite type solutions to the things that are going on in your life. So this is why we call it life hacks. So the thing about a life hack, if you've ever seen kind of like, one of my favourite life hacks is actually how to eat a pomegranate. That sounds like it should be the title of a really rude book, How to Eat a Pomegranate. Anyway, where the guy in it kind of like just sort of skims around the top. This is a bit of education you didn't expect. Skims around the top of the pomegranate, takes the sort of the top of it off, and then finds the segments in the pomegranate, see, Blue Peter style, and then kind of cuts around the segments and then cracks it open, and it's much easier to take out all of it. Well, that would be a life hack. That's what a life hack is. It's a way of showing you a simpler version of to do something with your life. Now, as I'm an expert in psychology, in understanding the way that the brain works, which is known as human dynamics, the way that we communicate with each other, I'm also an expert coach and very much into my spirituality and the way in which we interact with ourselves, the voice in our head, and also people around the world and in our lives. So that's really what this is about. It is not to take the place of a full consultation where we get to delve in the innards of your inner psyche and solve a lot of those perhaps problems that have been there a long time. I just wouldn't have the opportunity to do that. And also I want to be a little bit sensitive about not bringing out personal information on a public forum like this. So I'm going to be very careful as well about how I use my intuition in what I say and how I say it so that I don't make you cringe. I think those things are very important. Now, I have a couple of things to tell you before we start. So this gives you a bit of an opportunity to think about what kinds of questions you would like to ask. Now, there's a number of different ways in which you can ask questions. You can put up your hand. So if you look at the screen, there'll be like a little red hand that does this, and so you can put up a hand and you can either ask using your microphone or you can ask using your video and microphone. I'd love it if we could see you. I would love that. So if you want to ask a question, I'd love it if you use your video and microphone so that you'd look exactly the same as I'm looking now, and so we can actually have a proper conversation. That would be great. For the shyer among you, I understand, and you can just type your questions into the comment box. So I'm going to give you some time to do that. So rather than telling you about this stuff at the end, I'm going to tell you about some stuff now so that you've got time to put some questions together. I also know I got some questions in ahead of time, which I have given to Kat because she's going to be, Kat is kind of like the quiz master in a way. So Kat takes care of everything, all the technical stuff, all the questions and answers. She's a genius, whilst I'm able to kind of like talk to you directly. So that's what she's going to be doing. So let me have a little look about screen sharing. There it is. So let me just share this with you. This is a thing that you've just seen. So let me share. So here's something that's coming up that's quite exciting. I'm joining Kindred Spirit to do an article, like an advice column, pretty much like what I'm doing now, but giving a written response, which is probably going to have a lot more detail on it. If you want to be one of the first people to kind of do this and to be part of the magazine, then just pop me an email with work with me with a question on, and I shall respond and you will be in the first issue. So I'm very excited to be joining Kindred Spirit. That's going to be fun. I've always fancied myself as a little agony aunt. I like that. I've done it before in other magazines, so that's going to be fun. So that's something to tell you about. The other thing to tell you is I'm doing my stand-up intuitive show where I mix pretty much what I'm doing now but with live improv comedy and also mix that with storytelling as well. That's taking place at the King's Head Theatre in London. Really nice prestigious little theatre that in Islington. So if you are around, that's going to be taking place on Monday the 11th of April. Tickets are now on sale. And I'm going to talk to you about this at the end. Now, this is my course, The One Big Calling. Now, you may know from having heard people last time talk about how brilliant this course is and how much it had changed their lives, which is rather cool. So I'm going to be offering you a bit of a discount on this course. So you need to be listening at the end. If that's something you've been thinking about doing, you don't want to miss out on the end of the call. Just saying. Right, okay, so I can stop doing that. Excellent, stop sharing. And I'm back, and she's back in the room. Brill, so I'm going to hand myself over to Kat, and let's see what's been going on in the chat room.
Hi there, so just checking. Can everybody see me okay? Wave at me, Becky, if you can hear me. Yay, brilliant, that's excellent. So what I just wanted to do, I've got a few emailed questions that we're going to go through, and we might do a couple of those to start off with, but I would just encourage anybody who's online who wants to have a question answered, do pop it in the chat now, because I'll be keeping an eye on that as we go through. So I will pick them out. They may not come in the right order, but I'll pick them out and I will take charge. That side of things. So with no further ado, onwards. So first question for this evening: how to find out, if anything, what you are good at. I know exactly what motivates me and what I'm interested in, and although I work in the field which meets both of these criteria, I'm not very good at it, especially when I see how great my work colleagues are and the amazing feedback they get from clients. I've done lots of training courses but still fall short of being good at it, and this makes me miserable. I suspect I simply don't have the right innate personality traits or talents for the work. Career advice tends to say, do what you love, etc. And whilst I really want to be great at this job, it just isn't falling into place for me. And I wonder what I should do.
That's a really good one. I always think that a lot of businesses look for the right person for the job and not the right job for the person. And it's really important to have the right job for the person. I think that what's happening here is you're doing a lot of double thinking. So when you're double thinking, you're actually watching yourself doing something, which is a little bit like trying to listen to yourself singing. So if you were to listen to yourself singing, you would sing more quietly so you could hear yourself, or you would sing more loudly to be able to hear yourself, but you wouldn't be singing. You would be trying to do two things that are in contradiction to each other, singing and listening at the same time. So when you're in a working environment and you are conscious of the fact that you're not that good, which actually happens at the beginning of everything. We're never just born brilliant at anything. Everything has to be a learned skill. There are some things, it's very funny, I've noticed this recently. People have told me, oh, you're a real natural talent. And I'm like, no, I'm not. It took years to be able to do that. But you go, oh, thanks. But you're like, you have no idea what I've put myself through to be actually any good with that. And so I think we just assume that people are just naturally really good at things, but some things just take a little bit longer to learn. So when you're watching yourself do it, so if you imagine the learning curve being a curve, when you kind of get to that point on the learning curve, if you suddenly start watching yourself on the learning curve, then you're going to have a bit of a problem, because then you're going to be doing that listening to yourself singing thing. So if you suddenly start becoming self-conscious and consciously aware, you're occupying the wrong part of your brain to be able to get into flow, to be able to do something well. So you start compartmentalizing in the left hemisphere of your brain and compartmentalizing and analyzing what you're doing, which means that you're not in the right hemisphere of your brain to be creative. Now, I feel there's a lot of creativity in the job that you're doing. You haven't mentioned the job that you're doing, but I believe there's a lot of creativity in it, where you need to have ideas, you need to be spontaneous, and you need to be able to think on your feet, which you can't do if you're analyzing what you're doing, because it's a little bit like if you make a mistake and then you think about the mistake, then you're likely to make more mistakes because you're not in the moment, you're thinking about the mistake. So I'm kind of giving you several ways of looking at the same thing to make exactly the same point, which is you probably are good at this, but you just need to let go and relax. And whilst you're worrying about the fact that you're not good at it, you're not learning how to do it because you're not allowing the knowledge to be absorbed into your brain, because you're fragmenting your brain, and that's not helpful. I hope that was helpful. Okay, I hope that made some sense.
Brilliant, thanks Becky. So just on that subject, we've had a question in the chat from Sylvie asking how to be more in the present. Can you go into some more detail about that?
All right, I just have to put my hands up here. Like, I love being in the past and I love being in the future. I really enjoy it. I really enjoy daydreaming. I love it. I was always a kid, like looking out of the window, you know, I think it's an enjoyable thing to do. So firstly, you know, as I hang myself with my own solution here, I just want to say, if you're having a good time and you're enjoying yourself, then don't beat yourself up too much about not being able to be mindful and am I really enjoying this cup of tea to its full capacity of being able to drink the cup of tea. You know, that's okay. Don't beat yourself up too much about that. But the best way to become really present is slowing down. So time isn't linear. So when we tend to think about time being linear, the things that we don't remember are the things that we weren't present for. So let's all just have a little bit of a test and exam right now. Can you remember what you had for dinner, not yesterday, but the day before? Possibly not, because we're not necessarily that present when we're kind of like making dinner, and, you know, it might take you a bit of time to think about it. But when you're not present, that's usually when you get gaps in your memory. So that's something that it's worth being present for, so you don't end up kind of like sleeping through your life and can't remember it. But I'd say that because time isn't kind of linear, you can actually slow it down. So the way to slow it down is just to literally, because when I'm doing fixing, sorting and achieving, I'm thinking about the future, I'm thinking about the past, I've got to do this and I haven't done that, and shit, I haven't phoned such and such, and I've really got to phone them, and oh my God, and I haven't done this, and blah, 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 and breathe. And literally, if I just stop for a second and maybe focus on my breath, or put my hand on my heart, or just become still, and just that 2 minutes of stillness suddenly brings everything, suddenly starts to slow down. And then I suddenly find I have so much more time to do all of the things I was stressing out about. So if you just allow yourself to kind of go, wait, I'm in control of my own time here. And I'm just going to slow this down so that I can actually see everything clearly and put it all in. That, in a sense, is what mindfulness practice does. But, you know, I just don't think that we can be, I don't want to be like that all of the time, because I really do enjoy getting stressed and running around like a chicken without a head. So that's a nice vision. Anyway, so just, that would be the best piece of advice to help you with that. Thanks, Sylvie. Good question.
Right then, can I just cut you off there for a second, because I think a few people are bringing up the fact that there may be a connection problem. Now, what I would just say is we chatted online for a couple of minutes before we came online, and it could be that if you just give it a minute or two, it could just be bringing you back in and then back on again. So just wait with it for a couple of minutes, and then if you're still having problems, try logging back out and then logging back in to the chat room again and see if that helps. Okay?
Oh, sorry about those problems. I can see, like, Leslie says that she's okay.
Yeah, the team has got us now, which is brilliant. So, yeah, it may be worth just sticking with it for a couple of minutes if you end up with a bit of a delay or anything like that.
And all of this is being recorded, so if there's anything that you have missed, it will be up on YouTube almost instantly after it's finished. So just to be aware that, well, what I usually do is I take it off YouTube, tidy it up, make it a bit prettier, and then put it back on YouTube again. Just a little bit of editing. So yeah, so it will be coming to you as well. So hopefully you won't miss anything.
Brilliant. So next question that came in on the emails for you. Is what is in my way? What is blocking me as doors keep closing?
Yeah. Yes, we had a little bit of a conversation about this, because I was like, well, tell me more about that. What do you mean? What's kind of like getting in your way? Like, because it's kind of like a really, really, really big subject. But I really believe in what I call bottlenecking, which is that suddenly there are points in your life where everything just doesn't work. And you go, and quite often you think that the way around it is to work harder and put more effort in. But it's a little bit like as if you were a bubble in a bottle of champagne, you know, and it's like you're pushing and pushing and pushing against the cork, and then suddenly that bottleneck, you know, you were in the wide bit and now you're in the narrow bit, and then suddenly the cork finally goes and you're actually free and flowing into a wonderful glass and life is all happy. But I think that suddenly life just gets really tight, and usually when it does this, it's to say that you're pushing in the wrong direction, that there's something that you're doing that is not in alignment with what is in the real core of you. So it's kind of like having like your edges smoothed by, if you're a rock in the ocean and the waves keep hitting you and keep hitting you and keep hitting you, and you're like, this doesn't work and it isn't working, and why isn't anything flowing, and why am I not? And it's like, the smoother you become, the more capable you are to actually be able to go into flow. So the inquiry I would encourage you to take when all of the doors that you want to open are not opening is, am I living out an old dream here? Am I pursuing something that I no longer want? That's one reason it can happen. The second reason it can happen is because you don't know what you want and you don't know what you're pursuing, and you're just kind of, in a sense, clambering for anything that looks like it might be an enjoyable future, but you are unclear about what really drives you and what makes you feel happy as a person. Now, if we look at the Buddhist philosophy that, you know, desire is the root of all suffering, and that's actually really good for us to just not desire anything. But for us to kind of feel like we're progressing seems to be part of human nature. We want to feel like we're achieving something. This is what all of our midlife crises are about, or the 7-year itch. Like, what am I doing every 7 years? Am I doing enough? Am I living enough? You know, all of those feelings. And we've had lots of big celebrity deaths recently, and that always makes you start to reflect upon your life and think, oh, I must do more. You know, I mean, David Bowie, right up until the last minute, was still creating music. Like, what is it in your soul? Because there's a wonderful Wayne Dyer said, you don't want to die with your music still inside of you. And he certainly didn't. So I think that when we're looking at this, we tend to give our power away to some kind of astral sort of genius and say, what do you want me to do? When actually we have free will, and it's down to what we decide to do. So my course, The One Big Calling, is very good at getting you very clear on why I believe you decided to be born, but what is it that really drives you? What gets you excited? So I think that the way that I would look at this is either A, you're not going in the direction because you're unclear of the direction that you should be going in, and so no doors are opening because you're just banging on any old door. Or it's the fact that you need to have that preparation, so that there's something that you are clear about, that the universe is kind of holding things back until you are ready and in alignment for the thing that you want. So hopefully that gives you two answers to the question. I know which one you are. I know it's the indecision, don't know what I want, but I wanted to give two answers to that question because there's going to be other people listening that answer won't be appropriate to. Hope that makes sense.
Perfect. Thank you, Becky. And a question is coming in on the chat from Edward. Says, when you are doing something new, do you have any tips on how to become comfortable with the feeling of uncomfortableness when you're constantly pushing yourself out of your comfort zone?
Oh, yes.
Familiar for all of us, this one, I think.
Yeah, they always say like growth is on the outside of your comfort zone. And when you're doing something new and you really care about it, there's two things that happen. One is you start to feel like you're living at altitude, like you're looking down on your life and you have kind of no control over it, because outside of your comfort zone feels like you're ungrounded, that you don't have your feet on the floor, because there is no certainty. There's just passion. And when there's passion and desire, it's like the altitude of, it's like when we call it a leap of faith, that's what it feels like, the leap. It feels like we're leaping and we're at altitude and we're in the air and we don't know where we're going to land or how we're going to land, and it feels really scary. But it can also feel like an adrenaline. It can feel exciting and it can feel, you know, just really, really remarkable. So when you're on the outside of the comfort zone, it's always because you're living at altitude. So the uncertainty is really kind of getting used to altitude and kind of saying, okay, well, I'm up in the air, I don't have my feet on the floor, how can I feel safe? Well, you have to, in a sense, get a little bit safe with being at altitude, feeling I'm not going to fall, I'm not going to fall. You know, they always say about falling, it's not the height that's the problem, it's the ground. It's the ground. Don't hit the ground, and the height is fine. You know, falling is fine without the ground. So I think to start to enjoy the ride and to enjoy the altitude is the thing to do, because the uncomfortableness comes in the travel sickness of I'm at altitude and then I have a thought that says, what the hell do you think you're doing? This is ridiculous. This is stupid. This is all going to fail and you're going to look like an idiot. Boom. And then but there's nothing else I want more than this. And then altitude. And then, yes, but what if it all falls apart? Boom, and we're down. And it's like turbulence. It's like living in turbulence. So you're going to have to answer that voice in your head that goes into the protection mode, the safety mode, the security mode, that says, you know, if you continue doing this and you fail, it's going to be epic and you'll never recover. And everyone will be laughing and pointing like they did at school, because we all remember that. So I think just go, okay, this is just my fear talking. I get it. I hear you. Thank you. Maybe that's a valid point, but I'm going to continue with my passion because there's nothing that I care about more. And I want to do this more than anything else. And what scares me the most is if I don't do this, and I live in regret that I didn't do it, then if I do it and it goes wrong. And I think when you are congruent with, I can't not do this, then you have a darn good conversational argument that you can have with your inner fear, which is just, you know, it's literally the argument between the head and heart. And when you have congruence between your head and your heart, oh, I mean, you're living in paradise. Like when your head agrees with your heart, you're living in paradise. Like you're just untouchable. And this is why meditation or being still or connecting with your heart means that you can actually have that congruent conversation between your head and your heart. And then the altitude up and down doesn't happen. And then you feeling less kind of like sick in life. And then you can stay at the altitude of your passion and desires to just keep going without the queasiness. Okay, I hope that helps, Edward. Sorry, Kat, did I just kind of like drop you into the... Oh, she stopped talking finally. What was I doing?
No, that's all. I was just having a little strange technology conversation. It's okay. I think actually you may have answered this one, but Leslie put up a question which is very relating to what you were just talking about, which is, can you give a tip for spotting the difference between feeling something is off or wrong and actually if it's just fear holding you back?
Yeah, I think when something is off or wrong, because when you're looking at your intuition and it's like, you know, intuitively, am I off, you know, and, you know, am I wrong? Or I think that the best thing to do is literally just put your hand on your heart and say, what does my heart say to this? You know, and especially when it comes to judging other people, because quite often when we're judging somebody else, we can be judging them based on psychology of somebody we've experienced in our past, who reminds us of that person who perhaps has hurt us before. So we're like, oh, I don't like that person. But actually, it's not about that person. It's just random. So that can be interesting too. But usually what I do is if I'm not sure, I just put my hand on my heart and just say, what does love say to this? And interestingly, love always answers. And it isn't always immediate, and it isn't always words in your head. But just by doing it, there comes a sense of relaxation and stillness. And you go, what does love say to this? And it usually, mine often says, oh, you're being a tit. Mine goes, oh, come on, stop it. You're just worrying about nothing. But usually I can feel, if I put my hand on my heart and I'm still worrying and I haven't had that sense of peace, then there is a problem. And then I need to fix it. And then I know that my head is actually screaming, fire, because there actually is a fire. It's not just a fire alarm going off. So, you know, because we all have fire alarms that go off all the time for no reason, based on incidents that we've had in the past, that things that happen that remind us of those incidents. So I think that hand on heart, if you're still feeling weird and anxious, then there's a good reason to be weird and anxious. And then retreat, run away. Listen, my dog is snoring. I know that this has been picked up before. She goes to sleep underneath the table, so she does snore. So I'm just telling you. Sorry.
Lovely. I can't actually hear her this time, but I could actually hear her last time. So I know she's proper cute. So I've put my hand on my heart, and generally my hand on my heart from time to time actually tells me to go and scurry off and read a lot on Twitter and spend lots of time on Facebook, which is what Helen's question is, which is I love Twitter and I find I get sucked into it when I'm supposed to be focusing on other things. Any tips for keeping distractions short, please?
Yes. So you need to actually kind of like work it like a diet in a way. So you can say, okay, well, for the next 2 hours, I'm going to work on this writing project I'm doing, or for the next hour, I'm going to be on Twitter. It's literally just a case of discipline. I think when I was a teenager, I used to always worry if I wasn't going out with my friends. If I knew my friends were going out, I was always worrying like I was going to miss something. And I'd always be anxious. So I'd sometimes go out with my friends when I didn't want to go out, just in case something happened and I missed it and I didn't want to miss it. Now, interestingly, social media is now this massive extended family of friends, all sorts of people that we don't know and that we're never going to meet. But we feel like in order to be connected to every single event that's happening, we need to have Twitter or Facebook on in the background of our lives. And the truth is, we really don't. We really don't, because a lot of it is just utter crap. It really is. So I think ration yourself to say, okay, 5 minutes out of every hour, I will go on Twitter and I'll go and have a look and see what's going on. But you decide, and you, in a sense, create the discipline. But it's exactly the same thing of, if I miss out on something, my tribe will no longer love me and I'll be kicked out in the snow and die, because that's what the ego believes. The ego believes that unless we fit in with our community, we will die, because that would have been absolutely the truth going back in time. The problem is your tribe now is Twitter, and the tribe is Facebook, and the tribe is being glued to your mobile. So all of these things become something that we're really like connected to when we don't really need to be. So turn it off. That was a really long answer for turn it off, wasn't it? Really long.
Amazing. So, the question that's in on email. It's quite a long one, this, so bear with me. So, lately I've been observing more nepotism than ever in my workplace, and that makes me feel really angry, especially because I know that I can offer a lot more and I hate being ignored and that these ladies feel superior. I've tried a lot of things, thinking about something else, think that my job is temporal. I write them in a letter and burn it. I've even tried to feel blessed because these situations made me realise that I don't belong there, but I still feel this anger inside of me. What do you recommend I can do?
Well, firstly, I'm really pleased that you have taken responsibility with this and you've gone, okay, well, what can I do about it? So, you know, we've got a whole load of women that I work with who are not valuing me, not seeing me, all prioritising each other. And it's like the ladies' tea club. So they're all like mates, and then there's me on the outside. And again, talking about what I was just saying before about being on the outside of a tribe, the panic of that makes us really believe that we're going to die. It's like an awful kind of thing. But intuitively, I feel like you've got what I would call the archetype of an abandoned orphan. Now, what I mean by that, we all have different archetypes that play out in different points of our lives. So you might have the parent, mother, child. You could have kind of like the alchemist or the magician, or, you know, the controller or the pleaser. We all have these different archetypes. And what's interesting about abandoned orphans is abandoned orphans never feel that they fit into a family. So they've created kind of like this family that you feel that you're on the outside of. Now, when you're talking about the anger, and this is why I think that it's an archetypal burning, because when you are ridding yourself of an archetype, you get angry. And we go from the I'm not enough into I've had enough, and that's where the anger comes in. So the abandoned orphan says, I'm not enough, I'm unloved, I am alone, I'm abandoned. And then the anger that is coming up with that is like, I am enough and I am lovable and I will not put up with this crap anymore. And that anger is actually literally setting fire to an old story that we keep playing out. Now, I don't know whether or not you were literally abandoned as a child, or you just had busy parents, or where the abandoned orphan comes from. It's usually a mask that we put on in childhood in some way. So I have an inner pleaser. So I like making people happy. I'm a pleaser. You know, that's the way I got attention as a kid, was being really, really helpful. You know, and so when you look at the layers, the pleaser actually will be hiding something else. And that might be hiding an abandoned child, or that might be hiding a controller, or it's, you know, so the pleaser is usually kind of like, look over here, everyone, and don't see the fact that I really believe I'm stupid, or I really believe I'm something else. So these archetypes are quite useful, but when we are over an old story that we've been living by, the archetype is like the mask that we burn, and we burn that through anger. We burn it through, I've had enough of being like this. So it could be, I've had enough of people taking advantage of me. Might be the burning of the pleaser. It might be, you know, I've decided to learn to live in surrender. Might be the burning of the controller. And so we let go of these things. So try not, you know, anger, we think if we're on a spiritual path that we shouldn't get angry. There is such a thing as justified anger. And justified anger can be an extremely good healing tool towards self-love. And it's really good at getting rid of those archetypes. Now, the archetype doesn't go away completely. You know, it's kind of like a mask or part of who we are. But it might just be a costume that you shove in a closet and you don't feel like you need to get out and wear again. So hopefully that'll help. I know it's quite convoluted in however, you know, it's kind of like archetypes and blah, blah, blah. Have a look at if you're not quite sure what that's all about, you might find some answers in Jung psychology, or look at Caroline Mace's work, or, you know, but that might help understand. I'll give you a good example. Russell Brand is like the archetype of the court jester. So he was a comedian, very funny, but like the court jester would go into the courtroom and say things to the king that anyone else would have been beheaded for. But he was the wise one that was able to say things to the king that nobody else could have said to the king, and get laws overthrown or changed, because the jester would be able to kind of infiltrate through humour. Now, if you look at, I mean, he even almost looks like a court jester, but if you look at the way that Russell Brand started to actually say stuff about the government or this thing or that thing, his archetype of the court jester meant that nobody took him seriously, so he could say things publicly that most people couldn't say. So whenever you look at any comedian that actually comments on our social situation or our political situation, they're usually the archetype of the court jester. So hopefully that explains archetypes in a visual way for you to get your head around.
Just to follow on to that, Becky, if you could, Bettina's just put a quick question in the chat regarding archetypes. Are there other ways to rid oneself of the archetype besides anger? I think
it's, I do, in fact, actually, that's, I will make note to self. I will record you guys a meditation that I do. And it's, so if you want to get a copy of it, then, I don't know, I'll figure something out, like send me an email, or I'll just send it to everyone that's on my mailing list. That's what I'll do. This meditation is basically about you and your archetypes on a bus. And so I've got an archetype that's doing a moon out the back, you know, his pants are down, and God knows who he is or what he's doing there, but he's usually there. So when you think about archetypes being passengers on the bus that you are driving through life, you just want to be careful who's driving. So you don't necessarily want to kick them off the bus, but you want them in the passenger seat. For me, I want my intuition to be driving, or you might call it a higher self to be driving, my awareness to be driving. I don't want my pleaser to be driving, because she usually drives around boyfriends' houses and kind of, oh yeah, do you want dropping off at your ex's? No problem, I'll come and pick you up in the morning. You know, kind of, she's not that smart. Or if my inner critic is driving, he just spends all the time shouting at everyone on the road. If my controller's driving, then he'll drive all night, won't take meal breaks, won't take pee breaks, and just drive until his eyes bleed. Understanding what archetypes you've got using this meditation that I've got about the bus, you can work out who's driving, and ask them politely to sit in the passenger seat, and maybe put an inner life coach in the driving seat, or maybe a more positive archetype, or you just create a vision for your higher awareness and put that person in the driving seat. And another thing is to just kind of go, okay, who the hell is driving this bus? My fear is driving the bus. Okay, what's the voice of my fear? The voice of my fear is the critic. Okay, get out of this driving seat. You know, who's driving the bus now? Oh, the voice of the pleaser. Okay, why is the pleaser driving the bus? Because I'm about to go out for a drink with a bunch of people I've never met before. So I've gone into jazz hands. So when these archetypes are useful, my pleaser is useful when I'm meeting a bunch of people I've never met before, but my pleaser isn't useful if I'm kind of like going, you know, if I want to be a boss. So the archetype I'm using right now is the archetype of the teacher. That is who is driving the bus. You know, it may be in a moment I'm talking from the coach, you know, and I'm coaching you, or I'm encouraging you, or I might start talking from the voice of the healer. But you're not going to get the authentic Becky Walsh on a seminar like this. That's just not going to happen. I am like this all of the time, but you are seeing aspects of me, seeing hats of me. That's what we do in life. That's okay. So don't nuke all of your archetypes, because they may come in very handy. I've started embracing the archetype of my inner bitch, and it's been very freaking useful. So I don't necessarily want to get rid of my inner bitch, because sometimes that's exactly how I need to be, not being nasty to somebody, but I need to embrace, listen, you are not going to take the piss. This is what's going down. Blah, 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 blah. And you can't do that if she's sat at the back of the bus crying her eyes out because someone was mean. Okay, see what I mean? Okay, so yes, I'll figure out that meditation. I need to write that down on a piece of paper. I've got no piece of paper, and I'll record that for you. So I'll make that so it's a nice little meditation for you.
It's okay. I've got it down, Becky.
Thank you.
Okay, so that conversation about archetypes has really hit home with quite a lot of people on the chat here. So well done. You've really got into a lot of people's minds there, you weird woman. The meditation sounds great. A lot of people are very excited about that. But one comment from Anna, what you were talking about earlier about getting angry, she said it's really resonated with her because about a year ago she was getting very angry at her husband, and it was all to do with, she now sees that it's letting go of the anything for a quiet life belief. So really great.
Yeah, and anything for a quiet life is also another archetype. So I mean, you could probably put that as being kind of like a frightened child, and that child can be seen but not heard. So anything for a quiet life can also be, I mustn't be too much or too loud or too, you know, and that's an inner child archetype. So it's interesting when you start looking at the word archetypally, because you start to go, yeah, I can see these patterns, I can see these characters that I'm portraying that are not helping. Good.
And Leslie says that she lets her diva drive sometimes, which is always good. We've all got one of those. So I've just seen there's actually somebody come in that would like to speak. So I'm just going to accept that request, if that's okay. And hopefully what will happen is they'll pop out and pop back in again. But a very quick question while we're waiting. Do you have any advice for hearing and trusting first instincts about others in new situations?
So you've got a difference between your gut brain, which will give you the fight and flight responses, or your heart brain, which goes, oh, it's nice. So your gut brain uses your solar plexus to frisk people for information to see whether or not they are good people, and then that information goes into your sacral chakra and it goes into the gut brain, and the gut brain will give you one of the 4 F's, like, you know, the fight, food, and fornicate. Anyway, and so it will kind of guide you as to whether or not this person's good or bad. The problem being is if they remind you of somebody from your past who wasn't good, you know, somebody who did something that, you know, hurt you in the past, you're going to tar them with the same brush. Now, you might not be the same person. This might be the same situation. They might not be an awful person. So you've just got to be a little bit aware of that.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you are.
Yay, that's Becky. Yay. Thanks so much. I don't know how to use all this. You want me to try to connect my camera?
Oh, that's okay. Oh, there you are. You just came in. Hello.
Yes. So nice to see you. Oh, Becky, I've I've followed your work for a while, and I'd like to get your help. I've had a car accident 5 years ago that completely changed my life, and I was an athlete and a fitness person, and after a car accident, I wasn't able to return to that. Okay, so that means my business, and who I was stopped, and that pretty much started something that I could describe as a downward spiral ever since. So, a lot of trauma. I've been, repeatedly traumatized, and the area that suffered the most was my ability to take care of myself, make money, and, be the business person that I used to be. And I was, cheated out of a lot of things, in business during these times as well. And last year when my father passed away, I sort of couldn't hang on anymore, and I lost it. And I'm at that point now where I'd like to re-enter life. I'd like to, reestablish myself. I've been in hiding, and I was a very public person also. So even this little ability to see you and you see me is a metaphor for life. And I believe that this is probably the first sign that life says, okay, come, I want to see you now. So my question to you is, I don't know what I guess I know what I'm missing is the traumas have been so much, and the rejections and the betrayals, and I was also sexually abused. So it's been a lot. So the negative aspects are really keeping me afraid, but the part of me that wants to live just wants to live. And I don't know how to find the courage and the confidence at this point to take the first step. Because the person who I used to be, I'm no longer. I know I acquired a lot of beautiful skills. I have wonderful values, but I don't know what to do with all this.
So here's the thing. This is a rebirth. I say the old you. The hard thing is all of those wonderful qualities that you have and still have, but all of those wonderful qualities that feel like they got robbed from you. It's like that part, that old self, as wonderful it was as you were in a sense, died, and now there's been this sort of like in between land, in a way, while you've been recovering over all of this abuse, and like you said, we're hiding. And to me, that's going into winter. So, the tree gets rid of all of the leaves and looks very bare. It looks like it's died. And little do we know that all of the seeds are actually growing under the ground, and we don't know that they're growing. It's a little bit like how bamboo takes 5 years of growing underground and then suddenly shoots up and kind of like, grows like, sort of like 20 feet in sort of like an hour or something ridiculous. I don't even know what the stats are of bamboo, sadly. But so you have been really nurturing all of these seeds. You just don't know it. You just have looked like a barren wasteland, but that barren wasteland hasn't been happening. I think my big question to you now you are born again in a sense, and you're sort of sitting there going, I have this completely blank canvas, is what does life actually look like now? Because you know what it did look like, and you know what trauma looks like. But when you're saying, and I love the way that you said it, I want to live, and there was so much power in you saying that, because before intuitively I could just feel the churning in your stomach, and then when you said that, it was like you went rah, and the heart kind of came out. So when you're saying I want to live, what does live actually look like? What is the definition of live in your mind?
The definition, I want to use the word naked, meaning bare, and be able to be free and be feminine and be in my power and, produce, give value, be an entrepreneur and just be like really centered in my core and work from there and let the world meet me back there.
So really what strikes me so powerfully is that vulnerability. Like when you said, like literally coming on this call and having this conversation with me now is the start of that vulnerability, is the start of, I think it's true, because literally what you've done is everybody asks questions like tap, tap, tap. You've just gone, I'm freaking going to go and talk to her. You've come on here, you put your video on. I'm like, yes, go girl. Thank God somebody's, it's brilliant. And, and I think that this is you saying, there are great entrepreneurs out there. There are brilliant people that just look they're doing their thing, and that's brilliant. But you know what? It's all Instagrammed and Facebooked, and we look at this and we look at that. But what the world is actually crying out for right now is people to be able to stand up in their vulnerability and say, I love myself with whatever foibles I've got, with whatever pain I'm carrying, whatever, and that be the inspiration. Because I certainly know, like, having worked in the self-development field for a really, really long time, I think I'm actually here do what I do now, having met most of my heroes, and suddenly realised that there was bugger all about them that was actually heroic, that actually they were extremely ordinary. That the first one I met was Neil Donald Walsh, and just like me, when he hasn't eaten, he's like a right grumpy polar bear, you know, and just like me, like I'm more like an aggressive koala. But like, you know,
I've never even heard of such thing.
But this is the thing, like we all have this human element, but we all want to have someone to look up to. The guru is dead. We are sick of the freaking guru. We are sick of the freaking kind of like, oh, look, my perfect life, and my beautiful teeth, and my amazing hair, and we're sick of it. We're sick of it. Sick, sick, sick. We want to say now, actually, how can ordinary people just open their hearts and be in their own power and in their own moment, and be spiritual and live a life that is based on loving themselves for everything that they really are? My God, what an incredible teacher you would be of that.
Oh, wow.
You are leading that. You are literally leading that, because you've literally said, you know, from all of this trauma, from all of this like lack of control, I mean, sexual abuse and all of those things, and you have had your entire control taken away from you. Everything that you could have been doing, all gone, all gone. All of those things that, you know, it's like you literally set fire to your life. You know, when we talk about burning bridges, it was like everything. And from those ashes, you're like, I didn't need anything. I actually didn't need anything. And that's what you're going to teach people, is you actually don't need anything to be awesome. You don't need anything. You don't need a successful business or a practice or this thing or the other thing. Those things are bloody useful, because you have to pay rent and mortgages and buy soup. But that's you saying, I don't need anything. I can actually be in this power and I don't need anything. And that's what you will teach people. But there's two parts to this. There's that which is you as a teacher, leader, an inspirational figure. Then there's this other thing, which is you being playful, creative, and coming up with a business that is actually just complete fun. You're really good with helping people with, it's like, to me, it looks like it's got something to do with events, traveling, getting people out of their comfort zone and taking them, and it's around water, and taking them to places where they can actually experience something of themselves that they've never done before. So I have a feeling that what you're going to create is going to be two things, not just one thing. And then if you're anything like me, you'll have a zillion things coming off the two things. What do you make of what I've just said?
Everything, because, okay, let me just tell you this, and you're getting me so excited, and my heart is like pounding out of my chest here. And I live in like up north in Toronto, and I want to move down to Miami. Well, right by the ocean. Like, I started every day now for the second week, every morning, every night, I write down goals that are actually inspiring me. Okay, and one of them is I love living in my beautiful home in Miami facing the ocean, because that's my element. Okay, so that's something I'd like to do. And I also, events, meaning I wanna be able to touch people's lives. Okay, and you know, in every way I can. And traveling, that's another thing, because I'm such a flighty person. I would love to be able to travel the world and do this work, you know, maybe a handful of great events around during the year, and be able to give this to people.
So what if, because you're clearly not the first person to go through this, so what if you were kind of like creating events for people who were you 2 years ago? So if you think about where you were 2 years ago, if you could have found somebody who could have literally just scooped you and gone, okay, so we're going to go through almost like a 2-week retreat where we're going to rebirth you into finding everything that you love about yourself. So that might be okay. So we do a bit of snorkeling, we go out on a boat, we have campfires and we sing songs and we talk about the traumas that we went through and we laugh about things about ourselves that we love, and we, that kind of thing. Like, what if you were to be the person who was, I see you almost like as being a museum curator, where you bring in all of these different elements and bring them together in the same way that a museum person might bring in different, pieces of art or different pieces of history together to make an exhibition. I feel like you're going to take people so that they can actually make an exhibition of their lives, like that they have a book where they put their whole life into the book, and that book is made over the 2-week period whilst they're experiencing things that perhaps they were once scared of that they could do. And that would give you the opportunity to pop those up all over the world. But it's all about collaboration. It's looking at other people who are doing similar things, looking at the fact that if they've got newsletters together, it might be working with a group of different teachers that have got their own people that they could bring. So I think those two things in collaboration. One will be me up front saying to naked, as you put it, and then me helping everyone else to do that in a supportive womb-like environment where they can find themselves. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, and it's really resonating. And another thing, and this is actually my other part of my question, is the money part. I've been basically taken, like, I've lost everything, I've been taken everything, and that's the story of my life, that since I was little, I've been stolen from, taken everything. And now and obviously now with the inability to financially support myself, that's I feel like is the wall I keep on, going up against. And when I listen to you, it's like, yeah, but I don't have money to do all this. So one of the things I'd like to do as part of my work is, I know 2 years ago especially, and many people in my shoes who are more in the spiritual realms, they suffer financially. And I want to find a way. I guess my question is 2 parts, maybe to help me figure this out. The other thing is, one of my desires is to help people open the financial door, because we can't shine unless our basic needs are met. And there's so many people, and I don't believe that it should be this way, that there's so many people who can't go forward because they can't take care of their basic needs. So
that's a spiritual archetype, because the spiritual archetype is still like, it's spiritual archetypery still goes back to religion, which is, okay, so if I'm a monk, I've given up all of my worldly goods. If I'm a nun, I've given up all my worldly goods. So whatever it is, it's always about giving up all of your worldly goods and giving up all of your money. So we still have this belief that to be spiritual is to give up all desires. And again, back to the Buddhist philosophy, desire is the root of all suffering. So that can be part of it. But what I would say in this case is, dream big and start small. So you just need to be doing this with one person. You need to find one person and work with them for an hour. It might be so that you're finding and it might be, so giving up an hour of your time for no money is no big deal. And when we look at kind of like, okay, I'm going to create this really big thing, you've got to remember that people are going to be paying for that. But also as well, there may be people who are like, actually, I was once this girl that was sexually abused, and that this thing happened to me and that thing happened to me, and that actually you crowdfund it, so that the first time you do it is to say, look, I want able-bodied people who've lived through this to help fund the people who are just going through this. Like, so, when we talk about pay it forward, well, what about pay it back? It's kind of like, because sometimes, like when we think about pay, it's always the pay it forward thing, but actually sometimes it would be nice I want to give the love that I didn't manage to receive to somebody who was going through something that I went through. So sometimes we can also do a pay it back thing as well. So rather than kind of like thinking, oh God, I don't know how I'm going to do this financially, that thing of where there's a will, there's a way, either start really small and start building and sculpting what it looks like by doing it as a free meetup group. And then you start charging for your meetup group. And then you start inviting the meetup groups to go somewhere for an afternoon. And then, so it's just doing it in baby steps, because we start to kind of think, I've got to move to Miami, and Miami's expensive, and this thing and that thing, and the visa, and it just becomes overwhelming and stops us. So get really congruent with the point as to why you're doing it, and then do the why in any small way that you can in your life, in any opportunity where it comes up. So the why behind my work is to move people from fear to love. That's why I do what I do, because I want to change consciousness. I want to shift vibration from fear to love. I do that when I'm buying a cappuccino. I do that with every single person that I interact with. Every single person, I'm like, oh, your hair looks nice, oh, it's this or it's that, and I'll act quite eccentric, but that's because that's what I'm doing, because that's why I'm here. That's what gets me up in the morning. So you can find ways, once you've got what that core calling is, you can find ways to bring out that core calling in every aspect of your life, so that you know that you're already doing it without doing it to that big scale that feels overwhelming and scary and like a big financial thing, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
Good. I'm excited for you. I can feel it as well.
You know what? I just love you, because as I'm seeing you on the screen, like your eyes are receiving me. So that's really, really cool.
Yeah, I know, that's cool. It's funny, Kat said that earlier. She said, I love it when you really get going. She said, because your eyes change and then you get all sparkly. I was like, really?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very good.
Thank you ever so much. I don't know how you disconnect the call, but it's probably like a button.
So lovely to have you on. What I would just say is when you go, just read the comments, because you've got some lovely support going on in the comments. It's been lovely. Everybody's been talking in the comments. So well done, Becky. We've only got a little bit of time left. So what I'd like to do is just run through a couple of quick questions, if that's okay. Really quick. But very firstly, I would like you to do, everybody to do a quick hello, love, lots of love to Anne-Marie, who says that she is spending the evening of her wedding anniversary listening to life hacks, and she's loving it. So there you go.
Wow, thank you. Amazing. Oh my God, thank you so much. I don't know what to say to your husband.
So very quickly, a couple of intuition questions. I know you're absolutely the expert on these. So Olga, in relation to intuition, how to recognize the difference between spontaneity and impulsivity, as she really struggles with that.
Oh yeah, so spontaneity. I mean, spontaneity is when your heart surges forward, so that's, and what was the other word? Spontaneity and?
Impulsivity.
Impulsive. Being spontaneous and having an impulse. So being spontaneous is kind of like an action, and an impulse is kind of like, the impulse to do something, but you don't actually necessarily follow it through. And I think that our impulses can be about running away from things and running from things, where the spontaneity is usually moving towards something that you want to do. And I think really, again, it's that, I keep repeating this tonight, I don't know why, but it's that hand on heart. What does love say to this? It's just such a good indicator of the right course of action, because it engages your heart brain and not your gut brain, which is really powerful. I think that's a really good thing.
Okay, next question is from Sylvie. How to get out of the defense mode when the energy of somebody else is pulling her down?
Yeah, it's difficult though, isn't it? Because if somebody else is being kind of like, accusational or sort of like wanting something from you. Want is really repulsive. When somebody wants you, it's really kind of makes you go a bit, oh no, I don't like, the want thing. When somebody needs you, it's not quite as repulsive, but that kind of, it often makes you kind of want to do the rejection thing and kind of like move away. And it gives you a bit of a reptilian response. I think we hide too much of our negative reactions to things and think all negative reactions towards other people are wrong. I don't think they're always wrong. And I don't think it's always like saying, oh, it's in your shadow and we should all, love and light and treat everybody, with this. I think there needs to be compassion. There always needs to be compassion. But if you don't have compassion to yourself, and compassion to yourself is kind of going, this guy's irritating or this girl's irritating, they're getting on my nerves and it's making me not like who I am. Get out of their way. I think spending time with people who make you like yourself is really important. And getting out of the way of people who make you not like who you are is also equally important. It doesn't mean you don't like them. Most of the time it just means that you don't like your reactions to them, so you don't like yourself in their company. And that's an important definition, because quite often we think, oh, I don't like them, but actually it's just the fact that it brings up a negative feeling inside of yourself. So it's not necessarily that you don't like them. Time for one more, Kat.
Okay, so we do actually have one more question. Just a quick note that we've had a question come in from Anna. Anna, just to let you know, I have noted down your question, and I'm going to get Becky to drop you a quick email afterwards. So we have heard you, and we'll get that addressed. So the last question is from Carolyn, and she said, do you think interviewers in job situation go with their gut, and could you change that?
Oh, they definitely go with the gut. Yeah, interviews and situations. It's very interesting. There was a show on Radio 4 about mergers and takeovers. It was a business show, and talking about mergers and takeovers in business. And they had 4 experts on that are really big entrepreneurs, and they all said at the end of the day, well, like CIOs and CEOs and big business leaders. And in the end, they said, what it basically comes down to is gut feel when it comes to taking over businesses. And I absolutely know that it comes down to gut feel when people meet people. What looks good on CV might not be good. The only way that you can really change somebody's gut reaction to you, if they're having a negative gut reaction, because then that turns us into being people pleasers, is to know that if you're being interviewed, the interviewer has a problem. They have a vacancy, which means they have a problem. Never go into an interview going, please give me a chance to prove to you I can do this, because that gives them the response of, oh, no, because it's want. If you go in going, you have a problem and I am here to fix it, I'm going to help you, then that literally makes a person sit up and pay attention. So if you go in there with the, please give me a chance, give me the job, I'll prove to you, I'll be really great, I'll be really amazing, that will give you a bad gut reaction. If you go in there going, everyone chill out, I've arrived, I can help you with this, I'm here to serve, then that makes people feel warm and fuzzy and opening. And I think when I had to hire my own co-presenter when I had the radio show on, I didn't have to, I chose to, when I had the radio show on LBC, and the difference between everyone who was coming in, they wanted to talk about themselves and how brilliant they were and what they could do, but nobody was listening to what I needed. And the one guy who did listen to what I needed was Chris Hawkins. And so he came in and was literally listened to what I was saying. And then he said, it sounds like what you're looking for is this. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I need. And then he said, okay, well, I would really enjoy that because I could give you this. And I'm like, well, that would be great. But he didn't kind of talk about, he talked about solving my problem. He didn't talk about me solving his problem, the fact that he wanted this opportunity and he wanted this job. He talked about solving my problem. My problem was that I needed a particular type of co-presenter. And this is what happens, is the difference between the ego self. The ego self says, I'm brilliant, see me. And the whole self says, what do you need and how can I fulfill it? And that's what I would do in any job interview, is listen, what do you need and how can I fulfill it? And be the right person, that they're looking for, so that the job is the right for you because, if that makes sense, not just give me a chance. Good. So as promised, I was going to tell you a couple of things that I'm doing. So I would just share my screen. So I've talked a little bit about this before, which is my course, The One Big Calling. And what I'm going to do is, this course is £250, and because I like you lot so much and I like doing kind of like discounted things every so often, I'm going to knock £100 off this course, but like I like doing, it's going to be a flash sale. So you've got to have sent me an email, told me you want it, and by 8:30 tomorrow night. So you can check out the details of it on my website, but it's literally a course designed for people who have no clear direction, don't know what they want to do, but know that they want to do something amazing in the world. And this course is going to help you find out what that amazingness is. The other thing I'm going to do is, because Valentine's Day is coming up for everyone apart from the people who are online tonight when they should be having their anniversary. I'm going to do my 1 hour consultation, is normally 65, but I'm going to do some special relationship ones. Now this isn't just about relationships, it's about love. So it's about self-love, love of your friends, love of your family, relationship love, I can't get laid, all of those questions, or I'm getting laid too much, all of those Not a problem. All of those things. And instead of doing it for 65, an hour's consultation is going to be 55. But you have to book that by the 14th of February, which is Valentine's Day, simply because I'm just doing it as a little bit of a Valentine's special, because I feel like it. Because I like talking about love. It's one of my favourite subjects, so it won't feel like work. It never feels like work, if I'm absolutely honest. What am I talking about? Right, so there are my little offers and things. I'm back. So I just want to say thank you so much to Kat. You were brilliant as ever. I'm going to read your comments because I don't get the opportunity to read them. So if you want to add any more comments, then please do. But we're going to say goodbye now. But I will read through the comments that you've sent through. Don't forget, if you didn't get your question answered and you're happy for it to go into Kindred Spirit magazine, then pop us an email at becky@beckywalsh.com, and I'll be able to do that for you for the magazine. It's a free thing, so but you just need to give me some feedback and what you thought of what I said. So that's useful. So that stuff's all going to go into the magazine. I can't remember what month it's coming out, but in a couple of months' time. So thank you ever so much. And Kat, is there anything you'd like to say?
No, thanks ever so much for coming along. And I know there was some questions that didn't quite get answered, but I think that we've got all the ones that needed doing. And like you say, drop Becky a line. I'll come back on next time.
Brilliant. So see you next month. Thank you ever so much. Bye.